welcome to another Lawn Fawn video. Today we are so excited to be introducing our new interactive die, Peekaboo Pop Up. This die is so cool, and this is a look at what it does. So as you open up the card, you get this awesome surprise with this really cool movement. And these cards are so much fun to make. One of my favorite things about this die is how many different ways you can customize it, and we're going to be going over that in the video today. And here you can see all the cute cards that you can create with it using all of your stamps. It is so much fun, and I am so excited to see what you guys are going to create with the Peekaboo Pop-Up. So let's go ahead and check it out. Here is a look at all of the die pieces included in the Peekaboo Pop-Up. And first up, we have the main base piece. Then we have three different mechanisms that do three different things, and we'll be showing you that in this video. We have a little hillside border die that's included in there, and also this rounded rectangle that I'll show you a couple ways to use as well. We also have these cute little clouds and this adorable bird and some hearts and stars that are fun for setting the scenes on your Peekaboo Pop-Up cards. First up, we're going to work with the main base piece, and to create a Peekaboo Pop-Up card, you want to die cut this main piece twice. Then the next thing you're going to do is you'll see there's some score lines that the die creates for you. You want the score lines to be on the left on one of them and on the right on the other one. So on the left on one and on the right on the other. The one with the score line on the left, you're going to fold that like a valley. So there you'll see we've kind of created like a little V, and then you're going to fold the other one in the opposite direction, creating kind of a Z shape. And I'm just going to use my bone folder to reinforce those folds so they're really crisp. And as we open it up, you'll see it looks like a little valley on that side. Then the one that has the score lines on the right, we're going to create a mountain. So there you'll see we're creating a mountain. We're going to fold that just like that. And then we're going to fold the next fold there in the opposite direction, kind of creating a little Z fold. We're going to reinforce that with the bone folder. And now you'll see that we have a mountain. So we have a mountain type fold on the left, and we have a valley type fold with the one on the right. Next, we're going to take the border die that's included in the Peekaboo Pop-Up, and we're going to be die cutting the one that has the valley fold, that valley fold right there. Now, we're going to be making a little pencil mark at 2 3/4 inches up. You'll see I'm just going to make just a little tick mark right there. And that is the perfect height for a hill in the Peekaboo Pop-Up. So we're going to line up that border die with that 2 3/4 inch mark, and then we can hold that in place with some low-tack tape. We'll run it through a die cut machine, and now we have this beautiful stitched hillside that's going to fit perfectly and start creating our Peekaboo Pop-Up. Now it's time to attach this hillside piece onto our main base piece. So we're going to flip that over, and we're going to be adding some adhesive. And I really like using tape runner for these cards because if you ever have to move something around, it's pretty easy to do with tape runner. So here I'm just going to take a highlighter and just highlight the area where we're going to be adding adhesive. So we're adding adhesive to the right of that last score line. And so we're just going to take that tape runner and run it right all over there to the right of that last score line. Then once we've added that adhesive, all you need to do is just line it up with the bottom of your base piece. So we're just going to line that right up and press and secure it. Then I'm just going to open it up, so kind of like a book, just like that. The Peekaboo Pop-Up has three different mechanisms, and we're going to be going over how to use all three of these mechanisms here at the beginning of the video and throughout our card making in the video as well. So there you can see those three different sizes, and what they do is they place your mechanism along different points on your card. So here you'll see there'll be one there, one there, one there. So we'll show you how they all go, but we're going to start off with our shortest mechanism first. And you'll see that there's two little score lines that the die creates for you, and we're going to be folding on those score lines. Now here I have a piece of paper that I've cut it out, which is blue on one side and yellow on the other, so it's really easy to see our folds. We're going to be folding along those little triangle folds towards ourselves. So there you can see I'm folding towards myself, towards my own body there, and we're going to fold along those score lines. Next, we're going to add adhesive, and we're going to be adding adhesive on that little triangle that's on the left. I'm going to use a highlighter highlight that area. So whenever we're adding the adhesive, we're always adding it to the triangle that doesn't have the long piece coming out of it. So we're going to be adding the adhesive right there. And once again, I'm going to be using tape runner for this part. I'm going to be adding that tape runner right where that green highlighter is. And I like the tape runner because if you were to make a mistake, you have a little wiggle room. You could always pop it off and try again, but the adhesive will cure over time, so your card is going to be amazing. So there we've got the adhesive right on there where we have that green highlighter right onto that triangle. We're going to open up this hill once again like a book. We're going to just have that open just like that, and we're going to add this in. So we're going to flip it over, and you'll see that there's that long part there, kind of the longer part of that triangle. We're going to line that longer part up with the edge, and then we're just going to go a little bit under the score line and then just a little bit over from the edge. Just eyeball it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Anywhere you place it is going to work pretty well. So I just go right under the stitching line and right towards the edge. Then we're going to go ahead and fold that once again, just like a book. We're going to fold that over. And then you'll see that it's going to line up with that other fold that we created on the main base piece. So right there we've got our mechanism. We're going to hold that down so it's kind of in that nice L shape. And then we can fold over our hill. And then that hill is going to line up with the right side of the card when you fold that piece in. Now the next step is to add some more adhesive. So I'm going to take out my trusty green highlighter again so you can see where we're going to be adding that adhesive. And we're going to add that adhesive right there, just right underneath where that hill is going to line up. So I'm just going to take that tape runner again, attach that on there, and you'll see that it's all going to line up perfectly. So those little rounded edges are going to line up, and the outside edge is going to line up, and then we can press down and secure it. And as you open the card, that's it. The mechanism is working. And how cool is that? Oh, I love it so much. It's just so awesome. The mechanism of it is so cool, and I love how easy these are to create. And of course, they fit in a standard size envelope too, which is even better. Now it's time to work with the second mechanism. So we're going to be creating another card. So we've die cut two main pieces, and we have the score lines there on the left on one of the pieces and the score lines on the right on one of the pieces. The one that has the score lines on the left, we're going to create that valley fold, and then we're going to use our bone folder to reinforce those folds. And then the piece, the one that's in craft that has the score lines on the right, we're going to create the mountain fold. So we're going to fold that like a mountain there, and then just fold there against itself, creating kind of like a Z fold, and then use our bone folder to secure that. Next, we're going to work on using that border die that's included in the Peekaboo Pop Up. And we're going to once again be measuring that 2 3/4 inches height. And you might be asking yourself, why that height? Well, that is the perfect height for all three mechanisms to work. Now, there is some wiggle room there, and we will be showing you that. But if you create your hill at 2 3/4, all of the mechanisms will work and it'll be perfect. And it's just a really nice height for that hill. So I went ahead and marked that with my pencil, lined up that border die, holding in place with some low tack tape, running it through the die cut machine, and just like before, we have this cute little hill that has the V fold, and then we have the main base piece that has our mountain fold. Now we're going to flip that piece over, and we're going to be adding our adhesive. So there's my green highlighter showing you where we're going to put the adhesive, and it's going to be to the right of that score line. So we're just going to add our tape runner there, and then we can flip this piece over and attach it to the left side of the main base piece. Then we can open this like a book, and we're going to work on our next mechanism. So we're going to pick the next biggest mechanism here, and you'll see as we look at that mechanism, it has two score lines once again, and we're going to be folding along those score lines. And once again, we're going to be folding towards ourselves, so towards our own bodies. We're going to be folding that, and you'll see as I fold, you'll see the back of the paper, which once again is yellow. So it's just a nice contrast to see how we're folding it. And then we're going to fold this side down, and you'll see that this looks very familiar. We're going to be putting our adhesive on that triangle there that's on the left of the mechanism. So here's my trusty green highlighter again, and we're just going to highlight the area where we're going to be adding that adhesive, which is the triangle that does not have that long arm sticking out of it. Now it's time to add the mechanism into the card. So we have our hill open, and we're going to take this piece and we're going to flip it over, and we're going to look for that long side there, and we're going to line that up at the edge. So just a little bit below that stitching line and just a little bit in from the edge, and then we're going to attach that on. Once our mechanism is attached into the card, we can fold over that hill like a book. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add some adhesive on that main piece where the two are going to overlap. So I'll add my little green highlighter. That's where the adhesive is going to go. And then we can attach the two pieces, having them line up. And now we can open up a card and see the really cool action, and I never get over this. It's so cool, it's so much fun. I just love that you put this whole thing together, and as you open it, you get this great surprise. Now it's time to take a look at the third mechanism. And you may notice that this one's a little bit different. It actually only has one score line. And because of that, we're going to fold this one just a little bit differently. This one is going to fold away from ourselves, away from our body. So we're going to fold that away just like that. And then that little triangle that we just created, that's where the adhesive is going to go. So I'm going to take out my trusty green highlighter there and add my highlighter to where the adhesive is going to go. And we're just going to add it right on to that triangle so that we can attach the mechanism into our card. Just like before, we're going to be flipping our mechanism over, and then we're going to be looking for that long side there and that L shape, and we're going to line it up. And once again, it's going to go right underneath that stitching line and just a little bit in from the edge, and then we can secure that into the card. And then just like before, we can fold that over like a book. We'll add our adhesive to the main base piece where the two overlap, and we'll attach them together. And once again, you can pull it open and see this really, really cool mechanism. I just love it. And here is a comparison between the three mechanisms. You can see that each mechanism gets you in a different placement onto your card. So just depending on what your scene is going to be and where you want your critter to pop up, you can choose the different mechanisms. Now here is a look at the three mechanisms from the inside. It's kind of nice to see how the whole thing works together. And you can see that all of the mechanisms take up a different amount of space on the hill. And that's what we talked about earlier in the video. If you do that 2 3/4 inch hill height, all of these mechanisms are going to work perfectly. But you can kind of see on the smaller one there, you have a little wiggle room. So your hill could be a different size. The other really cool thing is you don't have to do a hill. You could use any border dies in your stash. And we're going to be showing you how to do all of these in the cards we're going to be making in just a little bit. Now, you may notice that these mechanisms are really long. Well, you don't necessarily have to use them at their whole height. You can trim them down. And so I wanted to show you different ways to do this. So here's the cute little die cut bird that's included in the Peekaboo Pop Up. And in this case, in my design, I want the bird to be sitting on the hill. So I'm going to attach my bird right onto the mechanism just with some tape runner. And now I can take my scissors and trim off any of the excess. And the mechanism is still going to work perfectly. And it's going to be completely hidden as well, which is really cool. And you can have your bird pop up right on the hill, which I just love that look. Now you, of course, can use the mechanisms at their full height. So you can take whatever critter or character you might want to add on there and add it to the very end of the piece. And that's also going to work really, really great. The other thing you can do is you can add the character right into the middle of the mechanism. So you could have the bird, you want him to be flying right there. Perfect. You can add him on there and then just trim off a little bit of the mechanism, not quite as much as we did at the very beginning. And all of these are going to work great no matter how you design them. And that's why I love this Peekaboo Pop-Up die so much, because it's really like anything in your imagination, because you can mix and match it and really customize it to the design that you want to create. Now, one last piece that this die has is this really cool rounded rectangle, and there's a couple ways to use that. And my favorite way to use it is actually to add it to the back of your card. And that's a really, really great place to write your message, and it just makes it look really nice. You can also put these onto a card base, and I'll be showing you that in just a little bit. The other thing that you can do with this rounded rectangle is it actually fits perfectly onto the front of the Peekaboo Pop-Up as well. So you can layer it right into your Peekaboo Pop-Up and then create the Peekaboo Pop-Up just as we did earlier in the video, and it gives you this cool kind of border, which might be a fun design for your card. So now that we've gone over all three of the mechanisms and how to put this together, it's time to create some cards. And we are starting up here with our awesome Let It Shine Starry Skies paper, and we're going to die cut that with the main Peekaboo Pop-Up piece. Then we're also going to die cut some white cardstock with that main Peekaboo Pop-Up piece. And you'll see that our white cardstock has the score lines on the left, and then our starry one, we've got the score lines on the right. So the one with the score lines on the left, that's the one we're going to create our valley fold, our V-shaped fold. So we're going to fold that one there towards ourselves and then fold the next fold back. And you'll see that we have that cool little valley. Now for the one on the other side, we want to do the opposite. We want to form a mountain. So we're going to do that, right? We're going to fold it just like that away from ourselves and then fold towards ourselves to create a cool mountain fold. And I'm going to secure that there with my bone folder. Now, the piece that has the valley folds is always the one that you're going to die cut with your border die. So in this case, we've got our stars as the background, and we have the white as a snowy hill. So I'm going to make my little tick mark at 2 3/4 inches, which is that hill height that works with all of the mechanisms. And then we're going to line up the border die that's included in the Peekaboo die set with that little tick mark, and we can hold it in place with some low tack tape, and then we can run that through the die cut machine. And this is going to give us a really cool snowy hill that has that V valley fold in it. The next step is going to be to attach the hillside onto our background. So we're going to flip that piece over just like we did at the beginning, and we're going to add some adhesive to the right of that score line. And then once we have that adhesive added, we can flip it over and line it up with the left-hand side of our cool sky. And you'll see those are going to line up perfectly since we die cut them with the same die. Then we can secure that in place and open it like a book. And then next we're going to start working with our mechanism. So as you remember from the beginning, there are 3 different mechanisms. I like to generally choose the one in the middle because that's going to give you that kind of middle perfect will probably work for most of your design's ideas. So it's a good one to start with. So you'll see it has those 2 little score lines, and we're going to fold those score lines towards ourselves. So you'll see there I'm just folding that towards my body. We'll fold both of those score lines. Next, we're going to add our adhesive to the triangle on the left-hand side. So that's the triangle that does not have the long arm coming out of it. So we're going to add our tape runner to that. We're going to take our piece and we're going to flip it over. And you'll see there's that long straight line right there. We're going to line that up with the edge. And so you'll see we'll go kind of right underneath that stitching line and just a little bit in. And that's going to form this really cool kind of L shape with the mechanism. Then we're going to fold that hill over, kind of like closing a book, and then we can push in that side, and you'll see where those 2 overlap is where we're going to need to put some more adhesive. So I'm going to take my tape runner and just add some adhesive right underneath there, and then we'll be able to secure the 2 pieces in place. And once we do that, that means our mechanism is done. It looks so cool, and it's ready to decorate. And I just love seeing the motion of that. It looks so cool. Now, next up, this was a little oops of mine. I wanted to stamp my sentiment onto the hill. I definitely should have done this before I put the whole thing together, but I forgot and I thought, you know what, let's just try it in the Misty and see what happens. So I ended up stamping it out in the Misty, and I just ended up having to stamp it twice to make sure that the sentiment stamped well because there were so many folds of paper. So if you remember, definitely stamp your sentiment first, but if you don't, this actually worked pretty well. Just folded it up, held it in place with the magnets, and then I was able to stamp the sentiment twice and get a really nice looking phrase. Now it's time to start decorating with stamped images, and I'm going to take the Snowball Fight stamp set out, and this stamp set is so cute. It's one of my favorite from the new release. I just love these little characters so much, and we're going to be creating a really cool snowball fight scene. And so for all of these characters, I'm going to be using Tape Runner. And that's because as I create these Peekaboo pop-ups, I have a tendency to want to move my images around. And you'll see how I'm going to do that and kind of integrate the moving mechanism into the card. So I'm going to add my cute little snow, it's like it's instead of a snowman, it's a snow mouse. And then this other little guy that's going to be throwing a snowball. And then I'm going to add my little fort there. And I'm going to want my character to be kind of like popping out from behind that fort. So you'll see in just a little bit, I'm going to be moving that fort back and forth. Then I'm going to add this other cute little mouse there who's making snowballs into the scene. And then now you'll see that I'm going to open up the card and I'm going to see where the mechanism is landing. And it's a little bit to the right of my snow fort. So this is when I realized, oh, I've got to move some things around. And because I used Tape Runner, it was really, really easy to do. And I just put them down lightly until I had them in the perfect position. So I'm going to move the little snow fort, and that means I'm going to move my snow mouse there over a little bit and just kind of fill in my scene and make everything look really even. So that's my favorite thing to do as I decorate these mechanisms, is just be okay with kind of moving things around to get into the perfect placement of that mechanism. The other thing I really love doing with Peekaboo pop-ups is hiding elements in the folds, because when the card is folded over, you can't see them. So not only do you get the surprise of the mechanism, but you get the surprise of the character there that's hidden in the fold who's kind of ducking from all of the snowballs, right? So we're going to add someone in that one fold, and then I'm going to add this other cute little mouse there in the other part of the fold. And so we're going to have a fun little surprise on the left-hand side of the card too. Next, it's time to add our mouse onto the mechanism. So I'm going to put some tape runner behind him, and then I'm going to layer this snowball so it looks like he's throwing a snowball. And then I'm going to add him onto the mechanism with the whole thing open so I can kind of decide where I want him to be right when the card opens. And there you'll see how cute he is looking right behind that snowball fort. And then we're going to take our scissors and just trim off the excess mechanism like we did at the beginning of the video. And the cool thing is you don't actually see the mechanism at all because it's hiding all behind the hill and the snowball fort. And of course, now I just had to play with it. And look how cute that is. Oh, I love it so much. So next I wanted to add some decoration into the sky. So I thought a sentiment from the snowball fight would be really fun. And there's a happy winter sentiment and there's an exclamation point too. So I'm going to add the little exclamation point at the end. And I'm going to stamp this out in some kiddie pool ink, which is a really nice match for that Let It Shine Starry Skies paper. And then we're going to die cut that with a sentiment banner die. And then we're going to be adding that up into the top of the scene. And I kind of like that there's a sentiment at the top and the bottom. It kind of balances the whole thing out. Then the last little surprise I wanted to add is I wanted to put another snowball into this. So it looks like those two mice are throwing snowballs at each other. And so what I decided to do was to take that snowball and actually hide it in the fold. So you'll see the snowball's going to go right there, but when I fold the card over, it actually covers the snowball up. So that's going to be another surprise as you open up the card. And I just love how cute this is looking. So now I need somewhere to be able to write my message. So I'm going to flip the card over and I'm going to die cut that rounded rectangle that's included in the Peekaboo Pop Up set. And I die cut that out of some white cardstock. I'm just going to add some tape runner to the back and then center it on the back of the Peekaboo Pop Up card. You can also put a folding card on the back, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that on one of the other cards in this video. And so now this card is all done, and look how cute this is. I love that you have the character popping up from behind the snowball fort. In my mind, he's running backwards with the snowball ready to throw it. And then I love that we even have hidden elements in the folds as well, so it really makes the whole scene a big, big surprise. Next up, we're going to do something a little bit different with the Peekaboo Pop-Up die, and that's one of the things I love about this die is there's so many cool design opportunities for it. So here you can see it working normally, but then I thought, well, what if you just turn it upside down? Now all of a sudden you have all of these really cool scene ideas that you can create. For example, a bird coming out from some treetops, which I think is really, really cool too. So we can create this the same exact way, but we'll have this really cool, totally different looking card. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to be creating a card that has this cute little mouse flying down from some treetops, but using the same exact method of creating the Peekaboo Pop-Up. So the first thing we're going to start out doing is actually decorating the sky. So this is going to be that main base piece. And so we're going to be doing some fun stenciling. And right now we are recreating an incredibly gorgeous card by Megan. So thank you so much, Megan. Now the first thing I'm doing here is I'm going to take out one of these hillside stencils and we're going to create this really pretty grass. I'm starting off with some twisted citron ink and then adding a little bit of shadow and darkness to the top of the grass with mowed lawn. Then we can pick up our stencil and I always love the reveal of that. Now, one of my favorite things about these stencils is that the top of the stencil becomes your mask. So we're going to use that to cover up our grass and protect it as we create the sky. And so here I'm starting off with some chipped sapphire ink, and then we're going to go into peacock feathers and then tumbled grass. And so you'll see I'm going to end up going kind of back and forth. A lot of the sky at the top is going to end up being covered up by our treetops, so I'm not too worried about how that's going to look. So I like the bright sky at the bottom, and it's going to kind of go into this darker sky, almost like maybe it's dusk, right? It's kind of towards the end of the evening, but not quite dark yet. Now that we have that all inked, I'm going to spray some water with my spray bottle here and then pick it up with a paper towel, and that's going to give us some really cool texture and honestly cover up some of my ink blending imperfections. Then I'm smearing some of the peacock feathers ink on the side. I'm going to spray a little bit of water. I'm going to pick that up with my paintbrush, and then I'm just tapping the paintbrush on the edge of an acrylic block to create really tiny little splatters everywhere. Once again, just creating some more texture. A lot of our design team members do this. They add lots of little splatters, white, gold paint, maybe some of the ink that you use like we did with the peacock feathers. And there's something about adding these splatters that make the backgrounds look truly magical. So now we're going to add some white paint there. So you can use some white acrylic paint. And then here I have some gold watercolor, but you could use anything that you have in your stash. It's just those little splatters that just make it feel so magical. And this gold just looks so pretty. So we're just going to add some water and then once again, add it to the paintbrush. And I like to tap the edge of the acrylic block. This is Rebecca's technique from the office to get very tiny little splatters. Then we can lift up that mask and oh my gosh, I'm telling you, always my favorite part. I know I say it every time, but it's just so cool when you lift up the mask. Next up, we're going to die cut the Peekaboo Pop Up piece again because we need two main base pieces. We have the one we ink blended and now we have this noble fir cardstock. And I'm going to die cut that with a puffy cloud border die, but we're actually going to make that into kind of a treetop. It's going to look really cool. So you'll see we're kind of lining that up with the sky to see how it's going to look. And it's looking really, really cool already. Now we're actually going to die cut this Peekaboo Pop-Up piece again from some Cilantro cardstock, and we're going to end up layering these two together. And the cool thing is you can do this. You can layer the two pieces and it still works really, really great. So we're going to use a puffy cloud border die again. We'll run that through the die cut machine, and now we'll have kind of like two different colors of leaves that are, one is peeking out from behind the other, just like that. Then to help the cardstock match our ink blended scene a little bit better, we're just going to add a little bit of inking to that. So we're going to add some Lucky Clover Distress ink just on the edge of the lighter green cardstock. And then we're going to add some black soot to the edge of the darker green cardstock. Once again, giving it that like kind of dusk, almost nighttime feel to the card. Now, this time we remembered to stamp our sentiment before we put the whole card together. So we're going to stamp out a sentiment from Simply Autumn Sentiment, since this is going to be a fun fall-themed card. We're going to line that up in the Misty, and we're going to be doing some heat embossing. So we'll stamp it with some clear embossing ink, sprinkle on some white heat embossing powder, and then heat it up with the heat tool for a nice bright white shiny sentiment. Now it's time to put the Peekaboo Pop-Up together. And we're going to be doing everything upside down, right? Because this whole mechanism is going to be coming from the top of the card. So I'm going to flip my scene upside down, and then we're going to take our two treetops out, and we're going to flip those upside down eventually as well. But I actually need to adhere these two together. So I'm going to add some tape runner, and I'm going to add a bunch of tape runner, really covering the whole card to make sure these two pieces are secured together really well. Then we're going to put the Peekaboo Pop-Up together just like we did before. So on this piece, we're going to want to make sure that we do the valley fold. So we're going to be folding into that V shape. Then for our sky or background, we're going to create the mountain fold. So we'll fold away from ourselves to create that mountain, then towards ourselves, and then just use a bone folder to make that a nice crisp fold. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our treetops there, we're going to turn them over, and we're going to add that tape runner to the right of that last score line. So to the right of the score line, we're adding all of that tape runner, and then we can flip it over and line it up with that bottom edge. Once that's secured down, we can open up that piece kind of like a book, and then we're going to pick our mechanism. And in this case, I'm going to use that third mechanism, the one that kind of gets you out the farthest. Now, this is the one that has the one score line. So we're going to fold that score line away from ourselves. And then I'm just going to use a bone folder to secure it. And here you can see I picked some peacock cardstock because it kind of matches my background, and that'll help it blend in. Then we're going to add some tape runner to that little fold that we created. And then we can line that right up. So underneath that stitching line and just a little bit over, just like we did at the beginning of the video. And when you attach it in, it's going to create that L shape. And when you see that L, that's how you'll know that you have everything in the right place. Then we're going to fold our treetops over, almost like closing a book. And then we can add our adhesive right where those two pieces are going to overlap. So we'll just add a little bit of tape runner there, and then we can secure those in place, creating our Peekaboo Pop-Up mechanism. And once that's secure, we can flip it over and we can see this cute scene start to form. I really like doing these upside down because it means I can create my Peekaboo Pop-Up just like I'm used to, but I'm going to create a totally different look when I flip the card over and I have my awesome treetops up top. Now to decorate this scene, we're going to be using a bunch of stamp sets, Really High Five, You Autumn Know, and Scripty Autumn Sentiments. And it's really fun to kind of shop your stash, look for your fall themed sets, and you can mix and match them into cute scenes with the Peekaboo Pop-Up. And that's one of the reasons I love this die is you can do it for any season. any holiday, winter, fall, Halloween, birthday, thank you, anything you can think of. And it's just a fun way to bring new life to your stamps. So right now we're going to start layering some images onto the card. And we talked about hiding elements in the fold in the other card. And now this time we're going to have some elements hanging over the fold. So you can see there on the left-hand side, we have those little leaves kind of hanging over. And I feel like it gives the card kind of like a shadow box feel. So there's a lot of things that you can do to really create cool looks on these cards. Now, one of the things I really liked that Megan did to add a little bit of dimension, but not too much, is she added a foam square behind the mouse head and then tape runner at the bottom. So his feet will be flat against the ground, but his head will be a little popped up, and it gives the card a little bit of dimension without adding too many pop dots that might get in the way of the mechanism. So we're going to do the same thing with this guy, foam dot on his head and tape runner behind his feet. And you'll see there that our mechanism is still moving. Now it's time to add our character to the mechanism. So we've got this cute little leaf and there's going to be a mouse kind of riding on the leaf. And I wanted to show you my process as I move things up and down depending how I see it's in the scene. And that's one of the things I love about using the tape runner because you can move things. So I had a little bit of extra mechanism. I'm just going to trim off any excess. And now I can add my mouse onto that cute leaf and it's going to look like he's flying down from the leaf. Now, as I saw the mouse kind of there, I went ahead and started adding more elements to fill in the rest of the scene. And you'll see that I'm going to move some things around. And that's my favorite way to decorate these Peekaboo pop-ups is to kind of add my character to the mechanism, see how it's looking, and then go, oh, the yellow leaf and the purple leaf are too close. I'm going to move that purple leaf over. And that's going to really kind of help solidify your cute and adorable scene. One of my favorite things that Megan did in this card is she brought in Simply Celebrate Critters, which has this really cute row of mice, and she added that to the top of the card, almost like these cute little mice are watching the scene below up from the top of the trees. And I don't know why, I thought it was just the cutest thing ever. So I added those little mice to the top, and oh my gosh, look how special and fun this card is. I just love it. Now, the cool thing about the Peekaboo Pop-Up is it is a standard card size, which means it fits in a standard envelope, and you can add a standard size card base to the back of it. So this card base here is going to be 5.5 by 4.25. And so I've gone ahead and just scored that there. And then we can add some tape runner to the back of the card, and you're going to see how we can fit it onto the Peekaboo Pop-Up because it's just going to layer right behind. So I'm actually going to flip it over so you can kind of see how the whole thing's going to layer. So you can just cover up the back with your card base and have more of a traditional card base, or you can do what we did on the first card, which was adding that little stitch rectangle. Now I'm just going to take my scissors and round the edges of that card. If you had one of those like corner chomper things, you could do that as well, but scissors work great and it just looks perfect. And so now we have our cute little mouse flying down from the treetops, which just looks so magical. And then here you can see how you can open up the card in a more traditional card way, right? Because we put that card base on the background. So you can open up, write your message, and then have the really cool interactive part of the card on the front. So I just think both ways of doing the cards look so great and so much fun. And just how cute is this? I love the idea of being able to have the Peekaboo pop-up mechanism come from the top of the card and the bottom of the card. It gives you so many cool different ways to use it. So now we've gone over 2 ways to use the Peekaboo Pop-Up, from the bottom and from the top. And guess what? There's another way you can step up this die even more. So of course, you can create your cards like this. They're perfect. They're awesome. You don't necessarily need to step it up. But if you were asking yourself, what if I wanted the critter to come from the other direction, right? How do I do that? That's what we're going to talk about here in the rest of the video. So we're going to start off by doing the same thing. We're going to die cut 2 pieces from the main base piece. But now we're going to do everything on the other side. So we're going to flip it over. So your valleys and your mountains are going to be on the opposite sides of each other. And we're going to go through this nice and slow so we can check that out. So the first thing we're going to do is this is going to be our grass. And we're going to be die cutting that with that border die that's included in the Peekaboo Pop-Up. But we're going to make sure that those score lines are on the right-hand side for our hill this time, because it's all going to be opposite of each other. Once again, don't worry, we're going to go over all of that. Before we do that though, we've got to do some inking on our sky because we're going to create a really fun, spooky Halloween sky. And this is a recreation of another card by Megan with one of her beautiful skies, and I just had so much fun creating this. So here we have the nighttime sky stencil. It's a new stencil with this really cool moon. And so I'm using twisted citron in the center and then peacock feathers all around it. And that's going to give us this cool kind of spooky glow glowing green moon. So I'm going back and forth between the colors to kind of blend them out, and then I can lift up my stencil and look how cool that moon looks. Nighttime Sky Stencil has the mask for the moon included in it. So we're going to layer that mask over top to protect our moon. And I'm just going to hold it in place with one of these little magnets, but you could also use some tape to hold it in place too. And then I'm going to start on the moon and then go off of it to create the glow of the moon. So I'm doing that with that same Twisted Citron bright green color to create that kind of glow look. And then I'm going over it with that peacock feathers to kind of give it that bluey green look. Then now I can lift up my mask and you can see that glow is starting to form. Now we're going to start creating the night sky. So here I have some blueprint sketch ink, which is a nice bright blue, and we're going to bring that in towards the moon. And then as we get closer to the moon, to help kind of blend that glow in, we're going to bring back those colors from before. So the peacock feathers and the twisted citron to just kind of help that glow and help it kind of blend into each other. Then to darken up the sky, we're going to bring in some chipped sapphire ink and then at the end also some black soot. And I feel like with Halloween skies, as soon as you add that black soot on there, that's what really brings the whole thing together and really gives it that cool spooky look. Then we're just going to go back through and blend that black ink into the sky. Now we're going to add our water sprays there. So I'm going to spray with a spray bottle and then use a paper towel to pick up any of the excess. And you can see that that's already adding to the spookiness of the sky. I'm going to add a few more water drops around because I was really liking how that looked. And then we're going to go back into Megan's splatters, right? That's what just makes her skies look so special. And I started doing it just like her and I just love it. So we're going to take out some white acrylic paint here and I'm just going to add some water and then splatter that over the background. And then we're going to take out some black watercolor because this is a Halloween sky. So that black watercolor paint is really going to add a cool spooky look to it. And I'm going to pick up some of that with some water and then we're going to tap that onto an acrylic block, creating tiny little sprays of black watercolor paint all over this cool sky. And doesn't it just look amazing? I had so much fun creating this. So now that our sky is created, we need to work on the hill. And we're going to die cut this with a hillside border die, just like we've done earlier in the video. But this time, once again, those score lines are on the right because it's flipped from what we did before. So we're going to line up that border die, once again, doing that 2 3/4 inch height, which is our safe height for all of the mechanisms to work. And then we'll have that beautiful stitch detail, and you'll see it's layering over top, just like we did in the other ones. Now, right here, we kind of looked at this and said, oh, that green isn't quite blending in, right? Because we have this beautiful ink sky. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add some Lucky Clover distress ink onto that Cilantro cardstock and then some black soot along the bottom to make it feel a little bit more like it's a part of that night sky. Now, this time we remembered again to do our stamping before creating the whole mechanism. And so we're going to stamp out Have a Fangtastic Day from the Fangtastic Friends stamp set. And we're going to do that in some clear embossing ink. Then we're going to sprinkle on some white heat embossing powder and heat it up with the heat tool and we'll have a nice bright white shiny sentiment. So now it's time to put the mechanism together. And remember, we're working on having the critter come from the other direction. So you'll see that our score lines on our front piece are on the right and the score lines on the big back piece are on the left. Now the back piece always gets the mountain fold. So you don't have to change anything with that. Your back piece is going to have the mountain. And then your front piece is going to have the valley. So we're going to fold that one in a valley. And you'll see that we're creating the same exact look. It's just on the other side. And so these are looking awesome together. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take our hill and we're going to flip it over and we're going to add adhesive there to the right of that last score line, just like that. And then we're going to attach that just like we did before. It's just on the opposite side. So we're just going to line that up and attach that down. Once our hill is securely attached, we can open it up like a book and then choose the mechanism. And we're going to choose that medium mechanism this time. But now our folding is going to be a little bit different. But before we fold that, I wanted to integrate my mechanism into the sky. So I'm going to use that same Twisted Citron ink on the mechanism so that it matches my sky. And that's a really cool way to create a custom mechanism that's going to match your background. So I'm doing some Twisted Citron ink all over. And I always like to do the front and the back. That way, just in case you kind of see the underside of the mechanism a little bit, it's all covered and you won't see white. Now you only need to ink the arm. You don't need to ink the bottom part because no one's going to see that part. Now we're going to fold those things, but we're folding away from ourselves this time because we're doing it on the opposite side. So we have to do everything opposite. So we're folding those triangles away from ourselves, and we're going to add adhesive onto the triangle that doesn't have the long arm. Then we're going to attach that in just like we did before, underneath the stitching a little bit in, and we're going to be forming this kind of backwards L. Then we'll fold our hill down, and where it lines up with the other one, that's where we're going to add our adhesive. And you can already kind of take a look and see how that's going to work. So we're going to hold that mechanism down, fold that over. It's going to line up with the main base piece. We're going to add our tape runner underneath where those two meet and attach them together. And so now we've formed our Peekaboo Pop Up on the other side of the card. That way the mechanism now will work in the other direction. What's really cool about this is if you have a character that's flying, for example, and he's pointed in one direction, now you can choose to have the mechanism go so it really looks like they're flying across the sky. And that's what we're going to do with this card. We're going to be using these awesome Fantastic Friends bats and also some cute pumpkins from Simply Celebrate Fall. And we want to use a bat that's going to be flying in that clockwise direction. So I'll show you how that's going to work in a second. But first we're going to help form the scene here. We're going to add our cute row of pumpkins and then a little spider in the pumpkins for our Halloween scene. Then you'll see that I kind of laid some bats out, just trying to figure out what I'm doing, but nothing is adhered. I'm just kind of playing around with my layout. And then now that I kind of have an idea what I'm going to do, I can start to attach things. So I'm attaching down the branch and then also that cute little bat, the one hanging from it and the flying one kind of above it. And then I'm going to have that bat hanging over the edge. Remember how we did that in the fall card? We had something hanging over the edge of the fold. I think it looks so cool and gives it kind of a shadow box effect. I'm also going to add a little spider hanging down from the tree branch there. I'm just going to trim off any excess on his string, and then we can just tuck it right underneath that branch. And I think that's such a cute look, and I like that the glow of the moon kind of frames that little spider. Now that I have the rest of the pieces in place, I feel like I can add my bat to the mechanism. So I'm going to add him to the mechanism and then just play with it and see how it's looking. And when I started playing with it, I didn't exactly like the angle of how he looked. So the cool thing is because I used tape runner, I can just pop him off, shift him just a little bit, and then he'll kind of match the angle of the mechanism a little bit better. So it really does look like he's flying through this really cool night sky to go talk to his friends up on the branch. So you'll see I'm just putting that on there, making sure it's nice and secure, and now I can check it again, and I love how this is looking. It's so cute. Now for this one, I wanted to do a card base again. So I have a standard size card base at 5.5 by 4.25, and then I'm just going to layer that on the back of the Peekaboo Pop-Up, and then we can take some scissors to just trim off the edges there. Once again, you could also use a little corner rounder too if you have one of those, but scissors works nice and easy. And then this card is all done. I love it so much, and I love that I was able to take the same exact die without any extra things and create a really cool look by having the bat move in the other direction. This helps you customize the Peekaboo Pop-Up to work with any stamps in your stash, which is so cool. And then here we have a little comparison between the two of these. So you can see the opposite motion here. You can see it's moving kind of like in a counterclockwise direction, and this one's moving in a clockwise direction. And that all has to do with how we did our folds and attached in our mechanism. Just one is opposite of the other, and it's just so much fun to be able to customize it. So now that we've done a mechanism on the other side, I want to do that style coming from the top. So we're going to work on that now. So we started off with a piece here, and I'm going to be creating a cool sky here, mixing scattered straw and worn lipstick. And when these two overlap, it creates this really pretty orange. The other thing that's fun about this card that I'm creating here is it shows we've done fall, Halloween, Christmas, but this die is a die that can work for anything. So this is kind of more of like a birthday tropical summery theme, but I just love that you can take this and use it for so many different things. Now that we have our background done, we can work on the other piece. So here we're going to be using a slimline tropical leaves border die. And that's the other thing I love about this is you can use any border dies in your stash. This is even a slimline one and it's still going to work. So I'm using the background there just kind of as a guide to see how long I want these leaves to be because they're going to be coming up from the top of the card. Then run that through the die cut machine and you can see just how cool these tropical leaves are looking. And so now we're going to be doing some inking for these. Adding some twisted citron and then some mowed lawn just for a nice little gradient there. And then we're going to spray some water so that it matches the other one. Pick it up with a paper towel. And then we'll also be doing some splatters with some of that mowed lawn ink just to have some little green splatters to give the leaves some texture. Now, just like we did for the fall themed card, we're going to create this card from the bottom. So I'm going to flip it over, even though eventually I want those leaves to be on top because it's easier to think of the mechanism that way. At least it is for me, but really there's no right or wrong way to put these together. So right now we're going to have our score lines there on the bigger one or on the left, and on the smaller piece there on the right. And so we're always going to be doing our mountain fold on our big piece. So we're going to create a mountain fold just like that. And then we're going to fold back in the other direction. And then on our piece that's in the front, our cool little grass here, we're going to do the valley fold. So we're going to fold there and then we're going to fold away from ourselves to create a cool little valley, just like we did in the back card. So we can flip over our leafy piece and then add some adhesive there to the right of that last score line. And then we're going to attach that on to our beautiful sunsetty base there, lining those two pieces up. Now it's time to pick our mechanism, and I'm going to be picking the one that we did first at the very beginning of the video. And the reason for that is because that one has the smallest footprint, and I did something a little bit different this time. Those leaves are not that magical 2 3/4 inch height where all the mechanisms work. It's a little bit shorter, but that's okay. I can use the mechanism that's a little bit shorter, and there's going to be plenty of room for that mechanism, and you'll see as we put it in there. Now I'm just inking up the mechanism so it matches our background, kind of like we did with the bats. And then I'm going to take those lines and I'm going to fold away from myself once again because we're building the opposite version of this, so we're doing everything opposite. And here I want to show you how this one is going to fit because it's kind of got a smaller footprint, and I can check. Perfect. It's going to fit right underneath those leaves, and it's going to move, and it's going to be great. And so that's a really great way to check what might be the right mechanism for you, is to just put it inside your card and see. You could always cut another mechanism and try a different one. Now we added some adhesive to that triangle, the one that's not attached to that long arm, and then we're going to put that in just like we've done before, forming that kind of backwards L there. Then we're going to add some adhesive there where this whole piece is going to line up, and we can just attach it just like we've done on all of the other Peekaboo pop-ups. Then once that's attached, you're going to see that it's still going to be able to move. So even though we have a piece at the top that's shorter than that 2 3/4 inches height, it still works because we used the smallest mechanism. Now to decorate it, I'm going to take out one of my favorite sets, which is Toucan Do It, because I just love these little toucans so much. And I'm actually going to start off this time by putting my toucan on this mechanism because I felt like that was kind of helped me decide where everything else was going to go on this card. So you can see how cute that is to have that toucan flying. And I was able to have him flying in that direction because we did it in the opposite way. So now I'm going to start filling in the scene. I'm going to add this branch here and that cute little toucan, and I'm going to trim off the edge of the branch. I like doing this because it makes it feel like we're maybe looking at this like continuous kind of foresty look, right? Then I'm just going to layer some other images from the set, a branch, some leaves. Once again, doing that technique of having something hanging over the fold so it gives it this fun three-dimensional shadow box feel. And then I'm going to add this cute little lizard there as well. I'm going to add a butterfly flying at the bottom, and then eventually I'm going to add some butterflies at the top as well, hiding them in the folds again, because I love that idea too of having the surprise. So we're going to hide some of those butterflies up there, and you'll see that when we open up the fold, you'll get the surprise of seeing those two butterflies flying up in that green leafy area. And I am just loving how this is looking. That little toucan popping out is so cute. And then you get the surprise of the butterflies all showing up because all the butterflies are hidden underneath the folds. Now for the sentiment, I'm going to die cut some letters using Henry's ABCs out of Craft in White. And we're going to be doing a sentiment that's have a wild day. So in the Toucan Do It set, there's have a wild day in there. I'm just going to use the have a and the day, and then I'm going to have the die cut letters for the wild. And I always think that's fun to mix and match stamping and die cut letters. And so I'm going to layer a little bit of a white shadow behind each of those letters so that they really pop on that green background. And then we're also going to stamp out the have a and day, and then we're going to die cut those with some sentiment banners so that we can layer those easily onto the card because I didn't stamp them beforehand and I wasn't going to risk it this time. I decided to just die cut some banners instead. So we're going to layer those banners right on top just like that, and then I'll be able to trim off any of the excess. I can layer in my letters, and I'm putting the W and the D first because they kind of overlap the two banners, and then I can fill in the other letters, making a nice even spacing. And now this card is all done, and how cute is this? I love the surprise of the toucan popping out. This one just makes me giggle every time I see it because he's just such a funny, cute little toucan. So you get the surprise of the butterflies, you have the pieces hanging over the edge of the fold for the shadow box feel, and everything's coming from above. And so here's the comparison to the bat one that we created with the mechanism there on the other side, and then the one that we created with the same mechanism placement, but it's now coming from the top. So I love that there's so many fun variations with this die. And so here is a fun look back at all of the different cards that we created today. We learned how to use the mechanism in the traditional way. We learned how to have it coming up from the top of the card. We also learned how to have the mechanism go in the opposite direction so they can move in both counterclockwise and clockwise movement from the top or the bottom. There are so many cool ways to create cards with this, whether it's Halloween, Christmas, thank you, birthday, fall, anything that you can think of. So let's go ahead and check out some incredible cards by the design team. First up, we have a stunning card by Grace. Isn't this just beautiful? She used our nighttime sky stencil, but instead of making it spooky, she made it this beautiful I love you to the moon and back themed card, and I love that the rocket ship is what is flying out on the Peekaboo Pop Up. Next up, we have the incredible card by Megan that inspired us to make ours today, and I just love the look of that little mouse flying on his leaf. This next card by Elena is just gonna blow your mind. I couldn't believe how clever and creative she mixed and matched so many different sets for such a cute Happy Halloween card, and I love that little bear popping up so much. Audrey's dark purple sky is just gorgeous on her Halloween card, and I love that when you open it up, you get that cute little ghost. It also shows that you can use just any sets in your stash, and I love that she brought Booyah back. This card by Maureen is so beautiful. I love that she has the treetop at the top, and she even inked the little side of the card to make it look like the tree branch. It's so fun and so gorgeous. Shari took out her favorite set, which is Happy Harvest, and created a beautiful fall card. And as you open it, a sunflower blooms. Isn't that just so pretty? This card here by Elise is just so much fun. I love that she used our brand new starry paper, and as you open it up, you get the surprise of the bat flying through the sky. Here you're going to see a really fun card by Lynette, and she used another brand new set, which is called Beachy Christmas. And as you open it up, the sun is up in the sky, which is so cute with this stamp set. I just love Callie's beautifully inked sky, and as you open up the card, the bat just peeks out from behind those leaves, and I think that's just such a fun look. Here, Letitia got inspired to use Beachy Christmas too, and she did some beautiful stenciling on her card, and as you open it up, you have this cute little jellyfish bopping up over the ocean, which is just too much fun. Here, Kara created a really fun Fantastic Friends card. This set is just so much fun with this die, and that little bat popping up is just so cute. And then here is the card by Megan that inspired us to make ours today. It was so much fun to create this card, and we just cannot wait to see the Peekaboo pop-up cards that you guys are going to create, so make sure to share it with us. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope you have an absolutely amazing day. Bye!